Hello and welcome to The Perspective on NTV World. I am Sabika Shrestha, your host for the weekly current affairs program. Here we pick the major news of the week, unpack its significance and examine how today's decisions shape tomorrow's direction. This week's episode focuses on key developments surrounding Nepal's recently concluded House of Representatives elections. Early results point to a historic surge for the Rashtriya Swatantra Party led by Balendra Shah, potentially paving the way for a rare parliamentary majority and a major shift in the country's political landscape. The program also covers the submission of the Judicial Commission's report on the September 8-9 protests, the party's reform-focused manifesto, early voting trends and the visible participation of first-time young voters. Despite largely peaceful polling observed by election monitors, voter turnout has been recorded as historically low this time. We look into all these details in this episode. 3-term extensions and finally the report held until the completion of the March 5 House of Representatives election. The Judicial Commission formed to investigate the 2 days of protests in September 8 and 9 has submitted its report. Though the report has not been made public, the recommendations and findings are being eagerly awaited by the public. With the elections results favoring a sweeping change in the governance, the implementation of the report will be a litmus test for the upcoming government, which seems to be certainly backed by a 2/3 of the majority. Devendra Subedi brings more.
The Judicial Commission formed to investigate the protests and vandalism on September 8th and 9th has submitted its report. Interestingly, within hours of the completion of the March 5 House of Representatives elections, it's a clear indication that Prime Minister Sushila Karki withheld the report before the election, sensing that it could spoil the environment for peaceful conclusion of the elections. What the report has suggested will only be public once the report goes into implementation, and hopefully it does get implemented, unlike in the past. Reports of some high-level commissions are still in the cells, which might have even been burnt to ashes in the arson inside Singha Darbar on the 9th of September. The former Justice Gauri Bahadur Karki-led commission, whose mandate was extended twice and the report kept in hold until the election, will be key to whether the new government, most likely formed by a new party, will really dare to act as per its promises. Though Prime Minister Karki committed to implement the report, the onus will be on the most probably 2/3 majority-backed upcoming government.
सिंहै यो वादीले यो भन्यो प्रतिवादीले यो भन्यो फलानाले यो भन्यो फलानाले बयान गर्यो त्यो त रिलिज हुँदैन निचोड के छ केही कुराहरू चाहिँ आउने हो त्यसैले फेरि पनि म एकदम धन्यवाद दिन चाहन्छु बहुत दुःख गरेर बहुत श्रम गरेर दुवैजनाले एकदम ठुलो एउटा चाहिँ उहाँहरूले मेहनत परिश्रम गरेर गर्नुभएको हो अन्य त्यो आयोगका अन्य जो सहयोग गर्नेहरू हुनुहुन्छ अफिसरहरू सचिवज्यूहरू उहाँहरूलाई पनि म धन्यवाद दिँदै यति नै भन्दछु.
Some of the key figures, including former Prime Minister K.P. Sharma Oli, Home Minister Ramesh Lekhak, and some key figures in the security agency as well as bureaucracy might even be indicted in the report. The challenge will be of the new government to make people believe that things have really changed in Nepal as per the expectation of seeing the report being implemented. Commission Chair Karki, in a brief summary, concluded that the youth-led movement was largely driven by widespread frustration over poor governance and corruption in state institutions. The statement of Karki was not a hidden truth, but the finding is what the general public are looking forward to know and see the implementation of the report.
Rashtriya Swatantra Party is poised to form a historic majority government in Nepal following a landslide election victory. As the last remaining election results continue to pour in, the mandate has clearly granted the relatively new party chance to govern the country independently. Despite this power shift away from the earlier established political parties, the road ahead is not going to be easy as it seems. Here's the report. Established just 4 years ago, Nepal's Rashtriya Swatantra Party (RSP) is nearing an overwhelming two-third majority in the House of Representatives. The people in the March 5 election have shown their faith in the new party that has been championing good governance and anti-corruption crusade in the country. However, despite the clear majority, which in fact could exceed the magic figure of two-thirds in the lower house, experts suggest that the road ahead is not going to be as easy as promised. While a majority government can bring programs as per its election manifesto to establish good governance, draft new laws, pass budgets and maintain a corruption-free administration, it would still lack the unilateral power to amend the constitution, declare a state of emergency, hold referendums or sign long-term international treaties. As an RSP-led majority government becomes a near certainty, a clear debate has emerged regarding its capabilities and limitations. According to experts, government with two-thirds majority will not have any pressure from coalition partners in maintaining good governance to corruption-free administrative mechanism. Bringing the policy and programs as per the manifesto and allocating budget accordingly will also not be an issue, but the problem, as always, has been in the implementation. People will be eyeing the implementation more than the documents, which are promising without doubts. Furthermore, government with two-thirds majority would have the power to impeach and remove heads of constitutional bodies, members or high-ranking officials like the Chief Justice in cases of constitutional violations or incompetence. However, would the government prioritize such issues or works towards addressing the public concerns on service delivery and crackdown on corruption is the pertinent question.
दुई-तिहाई बहुमत चाहिँ दुईटै सदनको चाहियो। त्यसको लागि चाहिँ राष्ट्रिय सभाको आफ्नो त दुईटै छँदैछ। प्रतिनिधि सभामा कुनै दलसँग सरकार राख्न परेन, कन्सल्ट गर्न परेन। तर राष्ट्रिय सभामा त उले दुईटा या तीनटा दललाई चाहिँ कन्सल्ट गर्न पर्यो, ट्रस्ट लिन पर्यो। त्यो भयो भने के गर्न सक्छ भन्दा शासकीय स्वरूपमा परिवर्तन गर्न सक्छ। जुन चाहिँ आज शासकीय स्वरूपमा चाहिँ ले स्थिर सरकार दिन सकेन, एकमना सरकार हुन सकेन भनेको थियो। आज एकमना सरकार भयो। त्यसमा चाहिँ निर्वाचन प्रणाली फेर्ने भनेका छन्। अब एकदम लोकप्रिय दल भयो भने त निर्वाचन प्रणाली नफेरे पनि दुई-तिहाई आउन सक्ने स्थिति रहेछ नि त। निर्वाचन प्रणाली फेर्ने नफेर्ने भन्ने प्रश्न पनि रह्यो। यदि चाहिँ कोलिसन गभर्मेन्ट भएको भए निर्वाचन प्रणाली फेर्न पर्थ्यो भन्ने कुरा आउँथ्यो। तर त्यो पनि नपर्न पनि सक्छ। या डाइरेक्ट इलेक्टेड प्रधानमन्त्री या राष्ट्रपति हुने भन्ने जेनजीको चाहिँ जुन माग छ, त्यसलाई चाहिँ राष्ट्रिय सभाको दुईटा तीनटा दललाई चाहिँ उले ट्रस्ट लियो भने संविधान संशोधन गरेर शासकीय स्वरूपमा पनि परिवर्तन गर्न सक्छ।
However, obtaining a single party majority does not make a government omnipotent. For several critical decisions, a two-thirds majority in both the House of Representatives and the National Assembly is mandatory. With the upper house still in favor of the now defeated political parties, it would not be easy for the dominant force in the lower house to act as per its will when it comes to amending constitution. Political analysts believe the current public mandate is a result of disillusionment with traditional parties and a deep desire for change. Also, the internal power equation is something the relatively new party is yet to institutionalize. However, if the government fails to meet public expectations, the people will certainly seek alternatives, if not immediately, in the next election. With the Rashtriya Swatantra Party poised for a commanding parliamentary majority, its manifesto now takes center stage as the blueprint for Nepal's next government. The party, led by Balendra Shah, frames its agenda as a citizen contract promising ambitious economic reforms, technology-driven growth, and a focus on good governance. But turning these promises into policy will be the real test as the party moves from campaign to government. Diksha Avasthi breaks down the party's manifesto.
The Rashtriya Swatantra Party's election symbol, the bell, is ringing across Nepal. The party framed this election not as a quest for power, but as what it calls a political loan from the people. With its manifesto presented as a citizen contract, The document lays out an ambitious roadmap promising economic transformation, good governance, and stronger engagement with the Nepali diaspora. At the center of the manifesto is an economic target, an average annual growth rate of 7% and per capita income of over $3,000 within 5 years. To reach that goal, the party says it will focus on increasing production, developing skilled manpower, and promoting technology-based industrialization with a plan to create 1.2 million new jobs in 5 years. The manifesto also promises broader economic reforms, including repealing around 24 outdated laws, reviewing the fixed exchange rate with the Indian rupee, reducing the tax burden, and adjusting income tax thresholds based on household dependency. To attract both domestic and foreign investment, the party pledges effective implementation of one-stop service centers and free digital business registration. One of its most ambitious visions lies in the technology sector. The RSP has declared information technology a national strategic industry with a target of $30 billion in IT sectors within the next decade. To support this, the party plans to build digital parks in all 7 provinces, aiming to position Nepal as a global technology hub exporting artificial intelligence and computational services. The manifesto also addresses ongoing problems in the cooperative and microfinance sectors, promising a unified savings protection fund and the return of small depositors' savings within 100 days. Large cooperatives with annual transactions exceeding 500 million rupees would fall under the direct regulation of the central bank, while loan sharking would be classified as an economic crime. In agriculture, the party says it wants to make farming a dignified profession, promoting agri-tech and fintech solutions, utilizing barren land, and offering tax exemptions for industries that add value to agricultural products. To reduce public expenditure and bureaucracy, the manifesto promises scrapping the Revenue Investigation Department and moving all government services online, shifting from lines to online. At its core, the party says its central promise is integrity and good governance, including an omnibus anti-corruption campaign and a high-level commission to investigate the property of public officials dating back to 1989. The manifesto also highlights outreach to the Nepali diaspora, promising online voting rights, continuity of ancestral citizenship, and a sovereign diaspora fund to channel migrant capital into national development. The road ahead will be closely watched as the party faces a challenge of translating these ambitious commitments from manifesto to policy if it leads the government.
Early results from Nepal's parliamentary elections suggest the country may be on the verge of a significant political transformation. Emerging political groups are gaining momentum across several constituencies, reflecting a wider wave of public demand for change and accountable governance. Here's a report. Nepal is witnessing rise of a new political wave with early vote counting suggesting that emerging political forces are gaining strong momentum across many constituencies. Preliminary trends from various districts indicate that several candidates from new political groups are leading, signaling a shift in voter sentiment and a potential transformation in the country's political landscape. The election comes after months of political turbulence and political protest, many of them driven by younger citizens demanding reforms, accountability, and better governance. Observers say the early trends suggest voters are increasingly looking beyond traditional political forces and placing their trust in new alternatives. Many see the election as an opportunity to bring change and redefine the direction of the nation's politics.
यो समयको माग पनि हो र यो चाहिएको पनि थियो के देशमा चाहिँ एउटा स्थिर सरकार भएर देशमा चाहिँ एउटा विकासको खाकाहरू कोरियोस् युवा जनशक्ति चाहिँ विदेशी नपरोस् यही चाहिँ केही रोजगार पाइयोस् भन्ने चाहिँ युवाहरूको चाहिँ असाध्यै ठुलो माग थियो के यो हामीलाई पनि चाहिएको थियो देशमा चाहिँ विकासको लहर चाहिँ छाओस् भन्ने चाहिँ हामीले यो आम जनताको चाहिँ आवश्यकता पनि हो माग पनि हो.
An election officer overseeing the counting process said officials are working continuously to deliver results as quickly as possible. The special parliamentary election is being closely watched even by the international community as a crucial moment in Nepal's history. The early counting trends suggest the election could mark the beginning of a new political phase as emerging parties and independent candidates gain ground. As vote counting continues across the country, the growing support for new political forces indicates that a fresh wave in Nepal's electoral politics may be taking shape, reflecting the aspirations of citizens seeking transparency, development, and effective governance. Nepal's March 5 House of Representatives election was undoubtedly historic, arising out of a special political vacuum following the overthrowing of an elected government from the street protests of September 8 and 9. The historic proportion of the election, however, was hardly reflected in the voters' turnout, which has been recorded as the lowest in Nepal's history. While the wave of change ushered in by the Gen Z movement beckons a new ray of hope among the people, especially the youths, does the significant drop in the voters' turnout signal towards growing frustration? Diksha Avasti brings a comparative look into the latest figures.
The March 5, 2026 House of Representatives election in Nepal was an early democratic exercise with over 2 years left for the dissolved lower house of parliament. Despite the political significance of the election, only 58.07% of registered voters cast their ballots. In the historic election, which is the lowest turnout recorded in nearly 3 decades in Nepal, a total of 18.9 million voters were registered for the polls, including around 900,000 first-time voters. Yet, the participation rate failed to match expectations. Historically, Nepal has recorded higher voter participation. In 1991, voter turnout stood at 65%, followed by 61% in 1994. The 2013 Constituent Assembly saw an encouraging 78.34% turnout, while the 2017 general election recorded 68% voter turnout, and the last 2022 parliamentary elections saw 61% turnout. The Election Commission, that claims to have gone extra miles to facilitate voting, does not have an answer to the question. The voter registration deadline was extended. The system was further digitized and 168 more polling stations were added compared to the previous federal election. But officials speculate 2 major factors could have contributed to the low turnout. One, a large number of registered Nepali voters living abroad and growing public frustration with politics.
There is very peaceful and enthusiastic voting participation of all voters. However, about the turnout of voting, this is not so satisfactory. However, this is not because of the role of Election Commission Nepal. Maybe this is because of the political parties, and also because some of them are out of the country and some of them are out of their permanent residence.
Experts also point to Nepal's massive labor migration as the factor leading to declining turnout. More than 2 million migrant workers who are eligible voters continue to send billions in remittances back home but are unable to vote. Many citizens feel that despite participating in repeated elections, they have not seen meaningful improvements in their daily lives. With the House of Representatives election only crossing the minimum turnout threshold of 50% to become legitimate, experts warn this could be a serious dent in democratic practice.
When you look at that, if it was less than 50%, that was invalid election. But it crosses 50% already, average around 58 to 59%, which is by law is a valid vote.
According to the Election Commission, despite exploring options such as out-of-constituency voting and overseas voting, serious legal and logistic hurdles, along with the lack of political will, made it impossible to materialize the agenda. As Nepal moves forward after yet another election, the challenge now is not only conducting polls, but re-energizing voters' confidence to ensure that more citizens feel their vote truly matters.
Ballots now have been sealed in what may prove to be one of the most consequential elections in Nepal's recent democratic history. Millions of voters across the country casted their ballots in the third parliamentary election since Nepal embraced the Federal Democratic Republican system. Held in the aftermath of political turbulence and the Gen Z-led movement that shook the country just months ago. Election is widely seen as a defining moment for Nepal's political future. A detailed report by Sivani Thapa Basnab.
From the Himalayan districts to the plains of the Tarai, voters turned out in significant numbers Thursday, lining up at polling stations across Nepal in a nationwide exercise of democracy. The scale of the election has been enormous. Millions of voters, thousands of candidates, and polling stations spread across some of the world's most challenging geography. Authorities deployed massive security and administrative resources to ensure the process remained largely peaceful and orderly. For the interim government led by former Chief Justice Sushila Karki, successfully conducting the election amid skepticism and sporadic challenges is already being viewed as a significant institutional achievement. But beyond the logistics, the real story lies in what this vote represents. This election comes at a moment when Nepal's political mood appears to be shifting. Public frustration with traditional parties, growing economic pressures, and the rising voice of a political awakened youth population have reshaped the national conversation. The Gen Z-led protest earlier this year amplified demands for accountability, reform, and a break from entrenched political patterns. And that is precisely why this election has drawn unusual international attention.
Rarely does Nepal hit global political headlines, but when it does, its developments often echo far beyond its borders. Across South Asia as well, the past few years have seen dramatic political upheavals, from economic collapse to mass protest and electoral shake-ups as well, which have largely challenged the long-standing political establishments. Now, across this regional backdrop, Nepal's election is being closely watched by the globe as another possible chapter in a broader democratic shift.
For many observers, the central question is simple but profound. Will Nepal's restless youth translate street momentum into electoral change? Or will the country once again return to a familiar outcome, a fragmented parliament shaped by traditional party loyalties that run deep through generations? The answers will begin to emerge as ballots are counted. For now, one thing is clear: Nepalis have spoken through the ballot box. Whether this vote produces a political earthquake or another chapter of cautious continuity is what the nation and a watching region will soon find out.
Young first-time voters own this Federal House of Representatives election, marking their strong presence in polling centers. Across Kathmandu, polling stations saw enthusiastic participation from young voters, much contrary to what was seen in the past. Several polling stations across the capital have been thronged by youths since early morning. The youths were hopeful that the country would change with the able leaders taking the policy-level chairs. Diksha Avasti hopped around some of the polling centers across the federal capital.
From 7 a.m. early morning, long queues began forming outside polling stations across Kathmandu, the capital. Among the crowd, there was a generation stepping into the democratic process for the very first time. Young first-time voters arrived at polling centers determined to take part in Nepal's Federal House of Representatives of Nepal election. The turnout of youths in polling centers across constituencies 5, 6, 7 and 8 in Kathmandu was striking. Many described their first vote as both exciting and deeply personal.
I think we were all anticipating this moment for a long time now, because it's been almost 6 months since the Gen Z revolution, and we all kind of wanted to see the change come in life. So I think it felt like I was actively participating in something that could make a change in the future and felt very empowering to me.
For many, today's vote is more than a civic ritual. It is a response to years of frustration with a political culture they say have failed to deliver stability, accountability, and opportunity. And after the recent September 8 and 9 Gen Z movement in Nepal, many young people say they feel a stronger sense of political responsibility.
Now I'm thinking about more like what are the agendas, what are the manifestos, and what change the leader could bring in the society and itself and also in the House of Parliament.
These voters say the expectation from political leaders is clear. They want a new political culture, one built on good governance, transparency, accountability, social justice, and equality.
It was too much, like the corruption, everything, and we wanted a new change.
I feel like taking out all the suffocation, and then after all, I think this election will do something better.
For this generation, the ballot represents both hope and pressure. Hope for change and pressure on those who will hold power.
For the development of our country, for the betterment of the people, that's what I'm mostly looking forward to.
As voting concludes across Nepal, these first-time voters say their participation is not just about choosing representatives. It is about demanding a more accountable and inclusive political future for Nepal.
That's the perspective for this week. We will be back next week with major highlights of the week. Thank you for watching NTV World.